Hello, friends. Welcome to Follow Your Process, a podcast where we talk about business and life topics. We ask a lot of questions, discover new information, and tell a whole lot of stories so that all the viewers can achieve their desired outcomes. Our podcast is sponsored by Benegas Art. And David Benegas has been a friend of mine for many years. He's from Colombia. He was born on July 4th, for those of you that didn't know. And he takes a piece of photography, any photography, family photo, whatever it might be, and he transforms it into Benegas Art. And he is a wonderful sponsor. And if you were to go to benegasartmerch.com and put in the FYP 5 off code, he's happy to discount you 5% off your first purchase. You can also send in any photograph you have, maybe of your wife, your family, whatever it might be, something really memorable, and he will commission that and transform that into Benegas Art. So I really encourage you. There was recently an Iranian architect that just had a big legal case settled, and his art was on the cover of the Atlantic when they talked about this. So David Benegas Art, tremendous guy, great. He lives in Miami and in New Jersey, and we really appreciate his sponsorship. On today's episode, I have 3 guests, and I am really enthused about today's episode because it's a topic that applies to all viewers no matter what because of this pandemic. And we're going to get into some granular detail with some tremendous experts, some new business entrepreneurs, some seasoned business people that have pivoted. We're all pivoting in some manner. And we're going to talk about cleaning and disinfecting your workspace and where you come and gather. And this is a topic that is all over the internet. It's in every business is seeking how to do this. Do I hire a service? Do I self-perform? So today I'm going to introduce all 3 of the guests here shortly. And then we're going to go and watch a few videos, which will really help you to get sort of lay the groundwork for our ongoing conversation. And today I'm going Joe Rogan. There's no time limit. So wherever this goes and however long it goes, we're going to be happy to discuss these topics and share this with our viewers. So Kevin Wang is in Anaheim, California, and he is with PowerPlus. Hello, Kevin. Nice to have you with us.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it's an honor. I've listened to several of your podcasts and I've done your research. Actually, Dallas, you can come back on. No, you guys can come back on because I'm going to go around the horn and then I'm going to go back to Kevin. So yeah, there you go. There you go. We're playing around with the camera thing. When you have multiple guests, I'm going to get back with Kevin and we're going to go into a little more detail after we show all the videos. But we had sort of in pregame instructed the other guests to turn off their camera so there's just me and Kevin on the screen. We'll do that in a minute. Jack Ponomarenko is in California, is in LA. Jack, hello. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. And then we have Dallas Farrow, who's out in Austin, Texas. I'm in Houston and Dallas is out in Austin. Hello, Dallas.
Hey, David. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really glad you're here. And the other thing I'm going to sort of flush out in this podcast is something that I care a lot about in my portable sanitation industry and sort of my day job, if you will. It's about collaboration. It's not about being in your silo. It's not about just staying to your knitting. You have to venture out a bit. You have to go meet some new people. You have to branch out a bit. And this story today on this episode is really going to show how collaboration is really going to enable all 3 of these organizations and companies with expertise to affect more people in America about keeping clean and disinfecting their spaces. So with that said, my producer, Skylar, who's in Golden, Colorado with Live Stream Remote, and that's who produces this podcast. Fantastic people. In the last 6 months, they've already done over 200 streams, working with all sorts of people. I encourage you all to go to livestreamremote.com and check them out if you need live streaming. But this is basically a TV produced episode. We've had many tech rehearsals, many pre-games, and so we're excited to bring this to you. But Skylar, let's go ahead and play the PowerPlus videos, and then I'll come back on and chat a little bit.
Today we live with a pandemic that threatens our way of life as we have known it. Businesses are eager to open back up, but need a way to have a safe space for clients and workers. Families are looking for a way to keep their children and homes safe. Fortunately, there is a solution. Sanitizing services are available through PowerPlus Cleaning Solutions. We have a growing list of vendors who specialize in writing custom prescriptions for your needs and can help you return your lives back to normal. Get your businesses back. Get your lives back. Contact PowerPlus Cleaning Solutions today.
Fantastic. So Kevin, those are some great videos. I'm a big believer in video of doing short ones, long ones, whatever it takes. So PowerPlus is obviously a business that's been around a long time. We'll get into your history later. But you offer those services direct to consumer. And now what we're going to do is we're going to transition and watch some of the Ponev videos. And you will see the Santa Fogger played a couple of times here. But Kevin and Jack got together, and now Ponev is offering this to his customer base. And we'll get into that more when I talk to Jack later. So Skylar, go ahead and play the Ponev videos.
I'm here with Kevin Wang, one of the world's leading voices in the space of disaster cleanup and relief and senior advisor in global environmental protection. Many prescriptions over the last 30 years for treatment of global and environmental disasters were written by him. Today, we are releasing 2 new innovative products of his, both of which have the ability to kill coronavirus and help transform their medical infrastructure to handle the planet's environmental challenges. Your friends, families, colleagues, and even you will soon once again be able to enjoy every bit of fresh air thanks to the Centifogger and Bioblaster. Kevin, what's the difference between an electrostatic sprayer and a ULV fogger?
That's a good question. So an electrostatic sprayer disperses really large particles that can damage paperwork or electronics and things like that, where a ULV fogger produces particle sizes that are so small your eye can't even see half of them. And so you can spray paperwork and office equipment and not damage it whatsoever.
That's incredible. All right, now, what products can I run through this?
You can use any water-based product. We recommend a product called Citricide. However, you can run any approved disinfectant or sanitizing agent. You cannot run solvents through them or things that are flammable.
How does this affect computers, paperwork, the stuff in my office?
So a ULV fogger won't harm those items whatsoever. In fact, it's the only technology that I'm aware of that can be used in those environments without destroying products and paperwork and damaging electronics.
how long do people need to wait before they can, re-enter the facility?
It's important to know that. You're going to get that information off the material safety data sheet on the chemical that you're using. I prefer citruside, and for that product, that time limit is 10 minutes.
So what is a bioblaster and how does it work?
Good question. A bioblaster is a system that uses high-intensity UVC light to basically shatter DNA and RNA, which means it kills viruses and molds, bacteria and spores, fungi.
Wow. All right. So what are some of the safety concerns of using a bioblaster?
Because a bioblaster emits its energy at a waveform of 254 nanometers to shatter DNA, we have an extensive training program that's required, and we recommend you bring in a number of your staff to get trained on this unit so that it can be utilized by multiple staff members. At the end of that training, we're going to perform a safety test with them, make sure they pass that, and then they become authorized to use this product. We really hope you have your team give our team a call, and we'll make sure that this is a good fit for you and go over the particulars and answer any questions you might have.
We at Ponev, and I'm sure the rest of the world, want to thank you so much for all of your amazing contributions to humanity.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Wow, those are great. That long video, I know it's 3 minutes, but it's a really good video, and it shows that connection between Sanifogger and PowerPlus right into Ponev. And Jack, you've done a great job. We'll get into it here in a little bit. But more recently, through your relationship with Intentional Medical Solutions, Joel Nelson and his crew, Steve Christian and Cheryl and so forth, you got introduced to Gold Shield, Dallas Farrow, and Jeremy, his partner Jeremy. And so now, Skyla, let's transition over and watch. I think we have 3 videos. They're not as long, but 3 videos on how Gold Shield works, and then 2 great videos on hand sanitizer, which we're going to get into with Dallas.
Introducing Gold Shield technology, the first patented water-stable antimicrobial to provide long-lasting protection with one simple application. As this technology spreads over the surface, it's forming a strong chemical bond called covalent that will not migrate from the surface once it's applied. As Gold Shield bonds to the exterior, it has a compound that positively charges the surface, attracting negatively charged microbes like germs and nasty bacteria. The last compound is a series of long carbon chains, like spikes, that form a protective shield in a nano-assembly on these surfaces that will remain persistently active and provide residual protection for months at a time. Gold Shield, the gold standard of safety and protection. For more information, visit www.goldshieldtech.com.
If there's one thing we all need, it's our health. And because 80% of germs can be spread by hand, having the right hand sanitizer is critical. Gold Shield's hand sanitizer is the gold standard in protection against germs. Unlike most on the market, Gold Shield continues to work long after it's applied. The real difference is in Gold Shield's core technology. After applied, the foam formula dries, yet remains safely on the surface of the skin, acting as an invisible shield, providing continuous antiseptic and antimicrobial protection for hours. Gold Shield kills 99.99% of common bacteria and illness-causing germs. Plus, the unique formula protects the skin significantly longer than alcohol without causing irritation. Gold Shield is safe for children, made in the USA, and it's registered with the FDA. Gold Shield, a safer family lifestyle.
Did you know that when alcohol-based sanitizers dry, they immediately lose their ability to kill germs? And watch what happens when we put this lit match on the alcohol-based sanitizer. Why would you use flammable liquid on your hands to kill germs? Well, now there's a better way. It's water-based Gold Shield hand sanitizer. What's most important, Gold Shield continues to kill germs long after it dries. Gold Shield is a moisturizing foam that acts like an invisible protective glove that continues to kill germs long after it dries, whereas alcohol stings, dries, and even cracks the skin each time you apply it. What's more, water-based Gold Shield kills 99.99% of germs, and it contains a gentle moisturizer too, to prove that Gold Shield continues to kill germs long after alcohol stops working. Watch what happens when both hands grab this heavily used cell phone. Then we measure the bacteria level on each hand. We treated the hand on the left with alcohol-based sanitizer, and the hand on the right with water-based Gold Shield. Immediately after treating the hands, both sanitizers killed most of the bacteria, but as the time elapses, you can see the bacteria level dramatically rise on the alcohol-treated hand on the left, while the bacteria level drops on the hand treated with Gold Shield, proving it continues to kill germs long after it's applied. Gold Shield is FDA registered and safe for children. It gives your kids germ protection at school or at play. Get your protective shield on today.
So again, another set of great videos by Gold Shield. Dallas, thanks for sharing those with us. And we'll dive into that product, how it works, and some of those other things. The whole hand sanitizer thing. I don't want to use alcohol-based hand sanitizer anymore. I haven't gotten my shipment yet, so I do take tchotchkes. You can see the tchotchkes I got up over here. I do accept gratuitous free things. I don't think I need a Santifogger yet, but we'll see. We'll see. So what I'd like to do now is go around the horn, and I'm gonna get with Kevin Wang. He and I are gonna go in a little bit deeper, and then I'm gonna come back to Jack and then to Dallas. So most of my podcasts have been limited to 45, 50 minutes, but this one doesn't have a time limit. So I think there's so much good information. These professionals are really on point right now. And so I want to take the time and follow your process so that you can all follow your process to achieve your desired outcomes on this topic, and really share with all of you some of the insights and wisdom and the collaboration. I think you can see it. There's collaboration going on here. So guys, thanks for turning off your cameras, and we'll come back to you shortly. But Kevin, in the research for this show, I went out and listened to a bunch of podcasts. And you've been on a bunch of podcasts. This isn't your first podcast, and thank you for being on this one. There was a bunch of audio ones and so forth. And what I was struck with when I was putting this show together with Jack and Dallas, and obviously you, was that people need to know about you. Like you're a hidden gem. And just some of my background, I did the World Trade Center disaster. I responded to Katrina. I responded to Ike and Gustav, to Harvey, to Michael. And that was in a portable sanitation realm, which is an essential service. Everyone's got to go to the bathroom. And if you don't have good sanitation, I remember going in the World Trade Center, the financial center across the street, and there were spackle buckets filled with human waste just because there was no sanitation. And we delivered 750 plastic porta-johns in 2 days and put them on daily service. And it was actually what enabled all the other work to then happen. So I'd really like, and I'm going to turn it over to you. This is just a brief intro. Tell my viewers like who you are, what you've done, and what your passions are, because obviously, as we described earlier, you haven't been able to talk a lot about what you've done because you're working directly for clients and directly for the government and directly for the Fukushima or whatever. Whereas COVID now applies and impacts everyone. So it's actually adjusting your marketing to then tell people your story. So go ahead. Tell us a little bit about Kevin and your passions.
Yeah, well, I started out as a mechanical engineer and an organic chemist, and come from a long family line of them. They developed things like the Polaroid camera and worked on the first artificial heart. And my uncle worked on the nuclear bomb and went on to become a vice president of sales for DuPont. And he worked with Einstein and Oppenheimer and those guys. My other uncle went on to also work with Einstein and Oppenheimer, went on to become a vice president of Ingersoll Rand, which doesn't have as much name recognition to say as DuPont, but they're
still. I mean, Ingersoll Rand is a massive company. So let me ask you a personal question. What was it like to know all of this and be born into above average intelligence, is how I would refer to it? You were just born into an environment and genes that were really smart people. Did you ever feel pressure early on that you had to do something that was really cool? Yeah, that's pretty intuitive of you. Crushing pressure. Crushing. Everybody in my family is expected to do great things. And yeah, it was a lot of pressure. And then they make it harder. Like they wouldn't give me a dime for college. So I had to work my way through college. And I did it with no loans. And where did you go to school? Long Beach. And then about 10 years of classes really around the United States after that. So what got you into disasters? How did you end up at the Exxon Valdez? And you're described as the person that writes the recipe to respond to the disaster. Yeah, so we always write the as you call it, recipe. I call it an environmental prescription for a disaster. The Exxon Valdez was our first big disaster, and I just kind of happened to be the right person at the right time. I was told that the CEOs were freaking out, going, how on earth do you clean this mess up? Like, this has never happened, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And it was just an overwhelming problem in one of the most beautiful places of the world. Mm-hmm. And somebody who knew about us just said, hey, I know a guy who could figure this out. And they were like, put him on speakerphone. And I had a 2-hour chat with them, and they wired me a whole bunch of money that day, sight unseen, no contract, no nothing. But Exxon spared no expense, and they were caution in making sure that they put all the assets on the table to clean that up as best as possible. So let me ask you: there is 1,000 people in America, tens of thousands of people in America with ideas that they believe in, right? That they can see the solution. Now, you were the same kind of guy. You could see the solution at Exxon Valdez. How did the desired outcomes match up with what you then went and did? And how did that build confidence in Kevin Wang as a person under this excruciating pressure from the family to go, okay, I did that, Well, that's a great question. And let me answer it by a short story. When the BP spill happened, we were calling all our government contacts, and I hold a position as senior advisor for environmental disasters at the Federation of American Scientists. So that was started by Einstein, that group of scientists, and I belong to that, and a great organization. And they are a think tank and advisory board to the House and the Senate and CIA and DOD and Department of Homeland Security and Coast Guard and Fish and Game and et cetera. Wow. And so I was using my contacts there. I was trying everything I could to get hold of the right people at BP. I even talked to the guy who was on the derrick as it was going down. So I was talking to him on the cell phone, and he was cussing me out for having his number. And I was like, dude, you're going to need my phone number. You're going to need my number. And anyway, we were challenged with a 2-mile line of people trying to get into the command center at BP. Right. They had all their wacky ideas of what was going to solve the problem. People with buckets of hay, and they're like, hay absorbs oil really well, and I got a hay farm, and I'm going to sell you hay, and it's going to solve all the problems. So what's interesting about that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan, and I don't think I interrupt as much as Gary V. And I am going to let you expound on all answers. But what's interesting about what you just described, okay, is when the World Trade Center happened, Tully Construction, my dear friends at Tully Construction, Peter Tully, Ken Tully, Tom Tully, Jim Tully, Dan Scully, Sean McPartland, Ed Segali, I can't tell you, dear friends of mine, they were building 9W at the time. So they were building the West Side Highway. And they simply took their vehicles and lined up, ready to go. And that's the people at the World Trade Center disaster that got the jobs, that got the work, are the ones that didn't question, should I worry whether they're going to take me or not? They just showed up. There's another good friend of mine, Brian Toohey from Central Coast Industries in Pismo Beach, California. When the Haiti earthquake happened, he went and bought, I don't know what the numbers are, 3,000 toilets in Southern California, 15, 16 service trucks, shipped them all to Houston, put them on a boat, and sent them to Haiti without any contract, without any knowing they get through customs, nothing. And I'm just going to highlight for people in disasters and right now in COVID, I mean, everybody's into cleaning and disinfecting. Like everybody has something. And one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, one of the reasons I'm dedicating this time and letting you guys really share your insights, and I'm going to spend a little extra time with you because you are more credible than most, okay? And your history, if you check out Kevin Wang, if you look at his history, you don't have to believe what he's saying. Just go check it out. The guy is too legit to quit. And I'm really privileged and honored to have you on my podcast, right? Talking about a topic of cleaning and disinfecting. But some of the things people in my industry, in the portable sanitation industry, I purposely slowly, and you'll see this when you rewatch it, raised my drink glass to United Site Services, Rollin K, who did all the toilets for the BP spill, as you were talking about the BP spill. And let me just interject here. The reason I did this podcast, I'm 53 years old, 54 years old. I think I'm 54 now. I turned 54 in August. Is I've had conversations like this with people like you over the years, 30 years of doing what I've been doing, that were never recorded and they were not in the library. And I think that when I got 3 calls over 6 weeks about, Dave, I need to buy a new portable toilet service truck. Should I get a new one or should I get a used one? And I tend to be a generous share of my time and information. I'll talk to anyone. I'll legitimately answer the question. And I know people at the new trucks, the used trucks, and how we did it at Mr. John in New York City with 180 trucks. So I have something that I can say, right? Yep. And I will give that same 20, 30-minute conversation to all 3 of those guys over 6 weeks. Well, I'm being selfish by doing follow your process. And I'm setting up a podcast. Now this video, this document is going to be in perpetuity, not only for myself and all my viewers that need to know about cleaning and disinfecting in disasters, but it's going to stimulate other collaborations, other connections. And then you guys will all have it in perpetuity as well. It is sort of this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And I really think that we're all here to help the COVID pandemic dynamic. So anyway, go back to you had a 2-mile line, BP, they're all sharing all this stuff, and then there you are.
So what happens is people get an idea, and the idea is maybe to oversimplify it, they may have a great idea for a tire, but a tire is not the car. So when you want to be the right solution to an environmental disaster, you need to be able to write the prescription. You need to be able to develop the chemistry or know what chemistry to bring to table. You need to know what equipment to bring to table or rapidly produce and develop the equipment. You need to know how to write a prescription of the use of that equipment. And you have to be able to manage the logistics of everything. And then you got to do all of that immediately. You have to have the cash flow to manage everything. You have to have a team behind you that knows exactly what to do, when, where, why, and how. And they need to be dependable. So
the whole concept of entrepreneurs is speed to market. In disaster response, what he just described, speed to market is like 100x whatever
Right.
you're thinking your speed to market is.
Yeah. We did things like completely invent a technology and had 500 of them out in the field the next day working. So, I mean, and I'm not talking about a screwdriver. We're talking about complex machines that were designed, developed, built, produced, and shipped in one day and being handed out the next morning for production.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it later with Jack Ponomarenko at Ponev, but I remember the story from my friend Joel Nelson at IMS where Marvin Windows needed 27 foggers. They were there like in 3 days or something. So it's I have personal experience through stories from my friends that what you're saying right now on the camera, what you're describing, you actually can do. So keep going with, so your Exxon Valdez experience and success gave you the confidence with BP, and give some stats around BP, what you did with the shrimp nets and all that stuff.
Yeah. So for the BP spill, we were already well on the map in the world for large disasters and very well established by then. In fact, we don't really have a competitor anywhere in the world that comes close to what we do. But we did 780 miles of shoreline decon. We put our equipment out on vessels, and 27 vessels, and used those to decontaminate vessels of opportunity that were too oily to come back into port. So we deconned 6,000 vessels out in the middle of the ocean. So we deconned them so that they could come back. And then we did about 10,000 shrimp nets. We did over 150,000 small items like jet skis and beach balls and little dogs. So we set up 40 boat wash stations along 4 states. And in those stations, we cleaned 20,000 small craft. So let me ask you a question here. You come from a lineage, which I did not know before this podcast. You come from a lineage of really smart, intelligent people, right? And I think that when I think about this, the legacy inside of portable sanitation is how does the guy that started in 64 get it off to his sons? And then how do those sons get it off to those next kids? And legacy is a big deal. It's very emotional. It's connected to all your issues, your family issues, tomorrow at Thanksgiving. I mean, it's a whole kettle of fish. You know what I mean? So what do you attribute, because you, Kevin Wang, have become an adult, an individual with all the pressure, but you've defined yourself also as Kevin Wang that is, you're not Einstein, you're not the other thing, but you've received cred, you're connected to some good people. What do you think that is that my viewers what would you encourage my viewers to pursue and understand that puts you in the space to stay balanced enough to figure it out? Because what you basically did was figured out something outside the box. And we're going to get into the Japanese nuclear thing, because that's another one that you did. But anyway, what is it about I think it's
Kevin Wang?
I think it's just the way my brain works. I don't know, maybe just God made me that way. I just see the big picture.
Give me some practical things. Like what do you do with the detractors? What do you do with, are you creative and just thinking in your own mind and just doing it?
I just immediately know exactly what to do with everything. I think it's a gift because I don't have to think about it. Like I can think hundreds of iterations. Like if I tweak something, I know immediately in my head how that tweak is going to affect something else, that affects something else, that affects something else. And I can see that hundreds, sometimes thousands of tweaks down the line. And I see it in my head instantly.
So hold on. Did you watch The Queen's Gambit?
No.
Okay, so The Queen's Gambit's on Netflix. Okay. Yeah. And it's about a woman who was orphaned, went to an orphanage, and as soon as they got to the orphanage, they were giving them tranquilizers, like they were giving them medicine twice a day. And she got in behind the back curtain and said, "Listen, hold on to the green one till night because you better take it at night." There's a whole backstory to that, and she ended up discovering chess as an 8-9-year-old. And then when she would take the tranquilizer, she could imagine the chessboard on the ceiling, and she would play games on the ceiling. And she learned chess from the janitor in the basement when she was told to go down and pound out the erasers. And this guy was sitting there playing chess by himself. and she ended up befriending him and had him teach her chess. So the talent and the skill, to the answer to your question, to my question, was I just understand it. Like I can see the sequences that are going to transpire. And if you go that way, this is going to happen. This way, and I actually think that's visionary concept. And when we get with Jack a little bit later, not now, but when we get with Jack a little bit later, he's the same way. This isn't just Ponev. He's not just doing Ponev. He's doing many, many other things. But the Ponev thing, the fact that you guys zoned together and identified and connected, and you have a business relationship and whatever, I think is connected to this point that you can just see things before they exist, and then you can grind out and make the sausage I always talk about to get it done, to make it happen. So transition over to the Japanese nuclear situation, because I think this is a big part of your credibility as well.
Well, for each disaster, we encounter a lot of problems, and then we develop answers to those problems. Like in the BP spill, we would clean off oil off of boats using water. Now we've recovered this oily water. Well, what do you do with that waste? Traditionally, that has to go to special treatment plants, right, and it creates a lot of sludge waste and long-term waste. So we, in a very, very short period of time, just a couple of weeks here, invented an oil water separator. And there's a million of them in the world, but we invented one that has no moving parts, uses no electricity, and doesn't wear out. So we were able to separate the oil from the water and then reuse our water to keep cleaning boats and stuff like that with, which saves on the use of water.
Well, I think you also captured all the oil and sent it back to the refineries as something that was acceptable to put back in the system.
That's right. So all that oil, went right back into the refineries and became gasoline and other products. So that's an example of how we develop a technology radically and a radical technology rapidly to solve a big problem. So with every disaster we've done, and we've done biological disasters, we've done WMD disasters, we've, like every disaster the U.S. has faced in the last 33 years, we've been behind the scenes or directly involved in all of it. So when Fukushima happened, I felt like for the first time in human history, we were high enough on our game that we could clean up a nuclear event, which most scientists will tell you is impossible. In fact, most people will tell you it's impossible. And so, but our machines are so good at cleaning now, at surface decontamination, that we can clean any surface in any position, upside down. Anything you see around me can be cleaned at levels just beyond imagination, including cleaning underwater. So we had to develop a system during the BP to clean 27 miles of underwater pavers that got oily at low tide. So we cleaned 27 miles of shoreline that was underwater. So that was a huge challenge, but we pulled that off in about 4 days of R&D and figured out what to do and built it and had it down there working.
Wow.
So with Fukushima, it was a big risk, a gamble, but we thought we could do it. And like always, I put the greatest minds I can get my hands on together to help me with puzzle pieces. Sometimes I'll see 90% of the puzzle or more. And there'll be a couple little pieces I'm not an expert in, and so I just ask myself, who's an expert in the world on this, and I chase them down. Sometimes it takes a couple days, and I'll chase them down and I'll start talking to them, and they recognize pretty rapidly that I know my portion of the puzzle, they know their portion, and I'll collaborate. Ponev, Jack, and my work like that, and.
So before we get to that, talk about the desired outcomes in Japan and what you actually accomplished. Just give us a few stats, and then we'll shift over to Jack.
Yeah, well, historically, you bury everything in concrete. But Japan being a small island, the size of California, not even the size of California, you can't just bury a third of the country in concrete. And so either you leave the people exposed or you develop a way of cleaning it. And so we developed a way of cleaning those surfaces and removing the radioisotopes from the surfaces, and did 4 different tours. And on our first tour, we were able to remove between 50 to 90%. By our second tour, we were removing 99.9% off of almost all surfaces. By our fourth tour, we were removing like to the third decimal, so like 99.999%.
So you kept improving your process. You kept learning and understanding. You kept, yes, it's beautiful.
And in human history, we've never even been able to remove 2%. So outside of a laboratory, no one's ever removed 2%. And we hit the ground removing 58% on our worst record. Like the worst portion of anything we did on our first tour was like, I think it was 58%. Our best was that we tested was 98% day one.
Wow.
So
listen, congratulations. And I would say for America, the world, thank you for what you do. Thank you for being, Kevin Wang and everything else. It literally, I keep saying this, it's an honor and a privilege to know you and to interact with you, to have you on the podcast and whatever. So tell us the story, how you met Jack Ponomarenko out there in California. And we'll transition over to Jack here in a couple of minutes. But go ahead. How did you meet Jack?
Jack's going to have to tell that part of the story. I don't actually remember how I met him, but I do know why we synced. And the reason we synced is we're not a marketing company. And so, I talk about puzzle pieces. There's puzzle pieces in the world that we're good at, but marketing isn't one of them. Yeah. So we've always had to do the opposite. We've always had to make sure nobody knows who we are. Nobody knows what we're doing. We're always doing secretive stuff or protecting our clients. And so none of our employees are ever allowed to talk to media. And so that's why most people don't know us. But with COVID, it's a different thing. My client isn't limited to one person or one company. It's the whole world. And so I need people that can speak to the world, that know how to market to the world, that are engaging and really have the gift cluster to make that happen, because you can have the cure for cancer. If nobody knows, you can't help them. And
hey, Jack, turn on your camera and you're going to come on here and we're going to just finish off this transition.
Yep, so Jack is the man that's really helped with all that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I know Jack and I have had some other conversations about some other projects, which we're not going to get into, just to stay focused on this. But I have a lot of appreciation for Jack. He's a quiet man and he's behind the scenes, but he's also a very innovative man that is passionate about getting some stuff done. And I think you found a gem in Jack Ponomarenko at Ponev. Kevin, thank you for diving into that. And we'll have you back on here as soon as I get through Jack and then Dallas. We'll all just get back on and have some more conversation. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Jack, that was quite an intro from none other than Kevin Wang. So tell the story. How did you meet him? How did you find him? Like, what was going on?
It was actually an interesting story. A good mutual friend of ours, Russell Neese, he knew that Kevin needed some help with distribution, marketing, and getting out the solution to the world to fight the spread of COVID-19. And then he knew that I was a serial entrepreneur. And he just knew that we were going to connect. And
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I think this story, and I like to emphasize it, is that we all have been impacted. All of our businesses have been, I'm in the temporary sanitation business, where I'm selling equipment that is much better hygiene. It's freshwater flushing, vacuum sanitation that replaces plastic porta-johns at large festivals and events. We have Live Nation. We have a bunch of other things, but there's no festivals going on. And there won't be festivals going on for quite some time. So like, what do you do? So we pivoted and came out with a construction unit. One of my earlier first or second podcasts was on this construction unit where we solved the cycle time compression challenge of taking all the toilets up and down the elevators 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. But anyway, we all need to pivot. We all need to do something. And also, we need to be comfortable being in our own apartment all the time and with ourselves and with our people. And I was really intrigued by my friend Steve Christian, who's my financial advisor, financial planner, introduced me to Joel Nelson at Intentional Medical Solutions. And they tell me a story. And I'd like you to maybe start off with it. So what happened? There's 27 Santa Foggers up at Marvin Windows in Minnesota?
Yeah, it was actually a very interesting story how that happened. We connected with some old buyers from Walmart and Sam's Club, and they connected us to Joel, and we had the conversation of who really needs this now. And Joel on the phone with Marvin Windows, which is one of the top 100 manufacturers in the world.
Yeah.
We placed an order literally the next day after talking to Kevin and I.
So the backstory to how Steven got to Marvin Windows is a pretty funny one. His mother lives in one of the most northern lakes in Minnesota. She's 84. And 4 years ago, she sold her house to her neighbor who wanted to control the next person to live next door to him. That's Paul Marvin. So Stephen Christian, who's a good friend of mine, he was on a podcast earlier. He's talking to Paul just because he's friends with him. He's got his cell phone number. They talk casually, like whatever. He's not the president of Marvin Windows. And Paul was saying, today was just crazy. I spent an hour and a half on the phone talking about thermometers. He goes, I've never spent that much time on thermometers in my life. And then you're talking about the temperature thermometers before people come in. And so I spent some time with Steven and I got to meet Joel a little bit. But I've heard this story on the outset. And then that's sort of what stimulated me to say, hey, cleaning, disinfecting, everyone needs to do this. All my viewers need to understand how to do this. So you hooked up with Kevin Wang. You've got the Ponev site. You're selling and distributing. So do you guys actually do the actual service yourself, or you just sell the equipment and the solution?
We sell the equipment and the solution. And
okay.
Kevin PowerPlus does the service. And
it's Ponev.com. You have an online store. People can go over there and check that out. Okay, so it's my understanding that IMS introduced you to Gold Shield, and not taking nothing away from you. We just don't need to go into a long history of everything else. Kevin was the one I really wanted to focus on because of his credibility, and I think you appreciate that and understand that. But Dallas, why don't you start your camera, and we're going to bring you over. So IMS introduced you to Dallas Farrow up in Austin, Texas, with Gold Shield as an additional product, alternative to citruside. You're not taking citruside down; you're still selling citruside, but a hospital grade, water-based, all natural. Now, those are some significant things I just said there. Hospital grade, water-based, all natural cleaners and disinfectants that can go through the sanifogger, right? I mean, you could buy that solution and put it through the sanifogger. Yes,
absolutely.
Nice. Well, that's good. So the other thing I said at the outset is there's a collab going on here, which I encourage all my viewers to pivot, get outside your comfort zone, find new relationships, interact with other people, find solutions. Whatever it may be. And when I'm done with Dallas, Jack, we'll come back to you and we'll have a 4-way and we'll just keep this really good conversation going on. So thank you, Jack. And we'll be back with you shortly.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, no problem. So Dallas, tell us a little bit about those videos we watched. I mentioned earlier, the long carbon chain, how it works. Maybe share with my viewers some of the science and the veracity behind your intellectual property, your patents, and what this product does. And the most important thing for me is how long it lasts.
Sure. Well, I think one of the things that Kevin and Jack shared was, you pre-COVID, your company's focused on one specific thing, two specific things, certain industries. Coming from the medical background, which is where Gold Shield started, they were trying to basically revitalize a new method to create new protocols to clean. The idea was, instead of using multiple products, creating one. I think, Kevin can appreciate it from a scientific background. Like you said, when you're trying to create a secret sauce, so to speak, you've got to think 1,000 steps ahead or you're going to be real busy on your testing. And that's kind of what they did. So the water-based stabilization was a first because of the fact that most people tried it, but the efficacy wasn't there. So you could say that what makes it stick is the fact that our super glue, so to speak, is better than others. The other thing that it does is it actually works and is safe on all surfaces. So when they tried to create this product, which is the antimicrobial, they said, hey, these are the types of goals we're trying to reach. And now, starting in 2005 to now, they have a bibliography of over 50 international and domestic tests, peer reviews in the medical community, and registrations across, international communities. So again, it really goes back to the testing and the studies, because what you say on your label and what you can do kind of has to be proven. So the idea with Gold Shield is that it's a proven product that actually has measurable results.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then the other interesting thing, and maybe talk a little bit about it, is the hand sanitizer. I'm aware that most schools and with kids, you can't be using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. You need an alternative that has a high kill rate. But talk about yours. The one I'm sort of personally intrigued by is its moisturizing and long-lasting effect.
Sure. So alcohol is a flash product. It does what it does. The problem is that when you start mass marketing it, and you were talking about small children, just the way to, seniors, adults, different types of environments have different types of issues when it comes to, flammable products, people touching their eyes. As you can remember, 4th of July, kids were lighting little firecrackers and playing with their little, sparkler sticks. And some of them were actually getting burned because they were putting on the hand sanitizer and not knowing. So alcohol does work in the sense that it's a flash product, but the idea is it's just like a disinfectant. The disinfectant just kills what's there and then it goes away. So the idea is with the GS24 hand sanitizer is that it does actually bond to the carbohydrates in your skin and does give you residual protection without drying out your skin. So completely different. Again, water-based, completely safe.
Yeah, I think more people need to know about that. So what was your interest? I think if I understand correctly, you developed a relationship with Ponev to get the Sanifoggers, and then maybe cross-marketing, cross-promoting. I think he's interested in your Gold Shield.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to talk a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, so kind of you could say it's just a technical relationship because of the fact that what stands out with Ponev is their ability to cover so many square feet. So again, electrostatic spray, but the ability to be so far back. So I think the number there is somewhere around 50 feet. Typically on other types of electrostatic sprayers, you're limited to about 5 to 10 feet. And so the reality here is that for commercial applications specific to our product, we can cover a lot of ground and actually do it the right way. Our product works very well with electrostatic sprayers because of the fact that our recipe also breaks the surface tension, which gives it a better efficacy. So those are kind of one and the same because they work together. It's just faster, better.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So why don't we? So tell us a little bit about who's using Gold Shield. Some of your star clients so far. Like I think you're in some hospitals, some chains.
Yeah. So the company itself started in the hospital world. The idea again was to find a way to cure what are called hospital acquired infections, which there's a long range of them. They end up costing the hospitals a lot of money. You've heard the story about Uncle Jim goes in for a small surgery and also comes out losing his arm, right? So it's a real thing, and those things are very expensive. And so the scientists at Gold Shield basically wanted to fix that because they saw a pattern. They realized that the protocols in place weren't specific and weren't being measured the way that they needed to be. And so they relied on the international community to do that. So specifically in the UK medical system uses it there. We have Exxon in the UK that also uses it. There's, through other dealers, you could say people that are more on the treatment side. There's Kohl's, Target, all these companies that were trying to keep their customers safe and let them know that it's kind of a best efforts basis, but it's very calculated across the country. So we've done offices, schools, small, banks, buildings, retail, etc.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You know what? I think it's good if we can bring Jack and Kevin back on. I have a couple of sort of back and forth I want you guys to discuss possibly. So this has been good. And by the way, folks, this is the first time that Follow Your Process has had a segmented multi-guest situation. I think we pulled it off. I had to tip off when to turn off the camera, when to turn it on the camera. But this is some of the stuff that happens behind the scenes. And I think it went really well. And I appreciate everyone's willingness to give it a shot. But what we want to do now is, Kevin, in our pregame, you talked about an evaluation of your electrostatic fogger, which we've all seen and heard is more effective because of the space that it covers in the period of time, which is what everyone needs to worry about when self-performing. I know that was Marvin Window's question. They have 500,000 square foot facilities and two guys. So they put two foggers in a 500,000 square foot. But talk a little bit about that more recent result that you had, if you can, where you were compared against something else and why the Santa fogger is what it is.
Yeah. So on our website, probably posting today or this evening, is a review. It's a victory unboxing and time trial against a Santa fogger. I pick on them because I have a lot of their units were pre-sold as electric sprayers to schools at pre-COVID, and to basically use like an electric squirt bottle. I was under the impression, because I hadn't worked with that specific type of fogger type, that they could shoot material 5-10 feet. But we discovered it's really about 1.5 feet max is their real coverage. And so we had to set up ladders to do shelves. We have some shelvings that are 24 inches thick, deep, and you couldn't get to the back of the shelf without putting the tool inside. Real labor intensive. Anyway, we were 87 times faster in that time trial. So that when you're paying somebody hourly or you got a job to do, that's a huge difference in labor.
Listen, I had Larry Cole on from Q-Grip a couple episodes ago, and they have a copper wrap, and copper kills viruses and bacteria. It's been known forever. That's 99.9% copper. And they're now introducing it to supermarkets where they have staff and people walking around the aisles and wiping down the freezer door handles when you need to open the freezer to get in to get your ice cream or whatever you're getting. If you put a Q-Grip on that, it's self-sanitizing. You know where to touch. It's clean. And you just open it and close it, saving the labor and the materials and the time. So I think that what's interesting about this is it's my understanding that Intentional Medical Solutions is working with the National Black Church Initiative and over 150,000 churches across America. How to come back to have worship service. I think they call it the Homecoming Jubilee. And so the NBCI has been around for 28 years. Dr. Evans, and they're seeking to come up with a solution about how to let the churches come back live. And then it makes total sense to me. But I think that a church which is struggling with budget isn't going to have the ability to hire PowerPlus to come in as a service. They're going to want to own the Santa fogger. And Jack, you guys are leasing these now? Is that right?
No, but we do have financing.
Okay, financing. So you do have financing so that if somebody doesn't have the expensive cost to buy it, they could finance it and pay for it over time. Yeah. But I really think this is a time for us all to come together, regardless of the corners of the world that we were in, that we were successful in, and to really collaborate. And I think that's what this podcast and the three of you guys getting together and doing what you're doing, they all have individual stories. They all have ways that it happened. But I think that what I sense is that you all want to make a difference for your community, for your local community, for the national community, global community. So Kevin, what do you think about COVID and how we were ready? I think you reminded me that back 6 or 7 years ago, you were on another podcast and you said we weren't ready. And then sure enough, we weren't. Talk a little bit about that.
I've been warning the CDC and the CIA for 15 years that we couldn't handle a virus in this nation. And so I think you might have listened to one of the podcasts from about 7 years ago where I said, like, there's no way we can handle a virus in this country and be able to manage it. And I could elaborate for hours about why that is, but we're in living proof of it. But we are getting better, and companies are being innovative and ramping up on production and things like that. And the population is becoming more aware of how to protect itself and things like that. I thank God that this COVID has turned out to be not as bad as we might have feared initially,
So is that, I mean, I don't know how to predict those things, but would you say that it's been, I mean, when you look at some of the stats sometimes, more people die of the flu than have died of this, but we don't make a big deal about it. That's, strange to me.
There's a lot of political stuff going on, right?
Yes. There's a lot of political stuff. Hey, Jack, talk about the blaster. This UV, it was in your video. Talk a little bit about the bioblaster and what that does. I know that came from Kevin, but I'd love to hear from you. What's up with that?
The bioblaster is a plug-and-play unit that eliminates 100% of viruses from any environment, and you're able to come back into that environment right after you use it. Special training is needed for safety for the operators team. Kevin flies out, or someone from his team flies out and trains them, and they're able to use probably the most effective equipment in the world to eliminate viruses.
In my research, I heard it's good for sound studios for musicians. And Steven Tucker at Live Stream Remote and Skylar, they're working with musicians all the time. But it's expensive, right, Kevin? I mean, it's not a cheap unit.
Yeah. I don't even know the exact price that it's on the market at, but in the neighborhood of $20,000. So they're not cheap, but they're 100% effective. They kill, basically 100% of everything, all known viruses, molds, spores, yeasts, everything, which is real important to have a non-chemical solution sometimes around delicate electronics, certain types of artwork, things like that. And so it's not only near perfect efficacy, it's the perfect tool for certain environments.
Like hospitals, or
great for hospitals, sound stages, studios, good for warehouses. It's got a lot of uses. It's just, it requires a well-trained person to operate it because of some risks. Basically, it kills everything in the room. The problem is what happens if you're in the room. Right. That's the risk. So we're not pushing that to we're not releasing them to untrained resources, things like that.
Makes sense. Dallas, I understand you all are expanding to Mexico, or you're involved in Mexico. Talk a little bit about the international sort of adoption of Gold Shield.
Sure. So the first thing we had to do was get our registration there. So you could say it's the EPA, FDA equivalent. We've achieved that. And during COVID, you can imagine, just like anywhere else, a lot of the government offices, agencies were closed. So we kind of had to call in all the troops in favor, so to speak. We were successful. Now we're launching there. We're doing applications. We're selling products. We're creating new products. Entering a little bit of the manufacturing side to get that done. And then we're also making a push to Colombia. We're working with other people who are making introductions in the Latin American market. So pushing right along there.
Yeah, and talking with Larry at QGrip, he has all the manufacturing he needs, but the distribution comes through personal relationships in these individual countries.
Absolutely.
Where if if you don't know somebody in India, you're probably not getting into India anytime soon.
Yes, we've got a great country manager there. So comes from a great background with like Unilever. We've got a chemist there who had 13 years with Colgate creating different products. So we've got a good team down there.
Yeah. So for all of you who've been watching in the lower thirds, there have been the contact information. I encourage you all to reach out to them directly. This literally is not a commercial, or I get no benefit from it. I'm just trying to share some information with my viewers, with some really credible, genuine people that are seeking to make a difference as we all try to figure out how to come back from COVID. You know, and it's the night before Thanksgiving. I got a little stat text message that not too many people were watching. I'm like, well, we probably didn't think about that too much, that we put it up the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. And sure enough, people are doing whatever they're doing right now, but it's okay. I don't do this for the number of views. I don't do this for any of that. I actually do it for having this kind of a conversation with individuals and professionals just like the three of you. And I can't thank you all enough for being on the podcast. I'm going to go around the horn and let each of you either talk about another topic that we didn't talk about that you wanted to, or give your salutations and Thanksgiving wishes out to the viewers. So Dallas, go ahead and start us off.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been great talking with Jack and Kevin, understand their backgrounds and what they've been involved in. So again, it is about collaboration. The second part I would say is feel free, reach out to us if you do have any questions. We work in all industries now, so there is help. If we can't help you, we know who can. So that's about it. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving.
Great. And Kevin, what are your thoughts here the night before Thanksgiving?
My thoughts are just well wishes for everybody. And I hope everybody enjoys their family time and just realizes that life is precious. Enjoy it. Forgive those family members that piss you off, and have a great Thanksgiving.
And do the Zoom with them anyway, right? Like get on there, laugh, and be on the Zoom anyway. Yeah, that's great advice. And Jack, I guess you get to close it out here. Well, what do you think?
Well, it was a pleasure talking to everyone. And I definitely think we're all out to preserve and protect human-to-human interaction, just like these moments. And I think that's one of the most valuable things on this planet. And I look forward to doing that. And thank you guys.
Yeah. So listen, thank you guys all very much. I get the privilege and the luxury of building new friendships, making new connections. I now have it on video, so you can watch it later on. And I thank my friends over at Livestream Remote for all their guidance, all the text messages I read during this show, with the nudges and the. I'm going to do a book and a story one day about what it's like to be on a podcast and get coaching. But it's all good. And thank you all. I am very grateful and thankful for each of you and all my viewers that'll come later when they watch it down the road. And I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. And my guests, don't leave. The show will end. We'll do a little music and then we'll chit chat. Thank you all.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.